Oh, okay, so you're going to do a number 2 with the door wide open and then come out and spit on the carpet. Like, honestly. Hey sailors, welcome back to Cruising as Crew. My name is Lucy and today we are going to be going through 10 things that I wish I knew before sharing a cabin. Now obviously I don't share a cabin at the moment, I have my own. However, I know a lot of people who are sharing a cabin on Virgin and on other cruise lines. And yeah, I was talking to one of my friends who is sharing a cabin and we got talking about stuff that we wish we had known before sharing a cabin, and that just sparked the idea to do this video because there's a lot of you going to be joining a cruise ship soon. If you are starting your cruise ship journey, then most likely you will be sharing a cabin because, you know, you go in entry level and then work your way up. So the first thing I wish I knew before sharing a cabin is a little bit more about personal hygiene, because everybody thinks that they're hygienic, but not everybody has the same level of hygiene. You know, some people shower 3 times a day, some people brush their teeth 5 times a day, but some people shower once a day, some people shower once every 2 days and think that is perfectly acceptable. Some people brush their teeth twice a day, like, that's just an example. Some people, after they've gone to the toilet, they have a shower and that's completely normal. Some people just wipe. Like, everybody has different levels of hygiene. Your cabin mate gets to know you intimately in that way. You know how often they shower, you know how often they brush their teeth because you live with them. Basically, one of the biggest complaints that people have when they are sharing a cabin is smell. Basically, if you have a smelly roommate, we're all really sensitive to smell, some more than others. So I'm going to tell you an embarrassing story about myself. On my first contract, I was in a habit of like going to the gym every day, was really good, and would come back to the cabin, take my gym clothes off, and I would hang them up on the little coat peg. I would shower and do my thing. But because I was going to the gym every day, I would wear basically the same gym clothes 2 days in a row and then wash. And I mean, I just didn't think it was an issue because the gym sessions I was doing, I wasn't like sweating profusely, so you know, I didn't come back and my gym clothes were soaking wet. Obviously I would wash them if that was the case. Unfortunately, it took her a while to bring it up to me because she was embarrassed and then I was embarrassed, and she was like, you know, can you not hang your gym clothes up because they stink? I was like, what do you mean they stink? And she was like, you've been to the gym in them, like they smell, and when you hang them up on, like, in the doorway, like that makes the whole room smell of your body odor. And I was like, I was mortified, absolutely mortified. Can you imagine? Because of course took them down from the coat peg, but because I was embarrassed, I did get a bit defensive. I didn't say anything to her, but within myself I was like, they don't even smell. But it's like, well, of course you can't smell it because it's your smell. And the other thing I have like learnt as well being on ships is we are less sensitive to the body odor of our native people. So like if I'm living with someone from England, I'm used to smelling that kind of body odor. So I'm just not sensitive to it, whereas someone from Asia, I'm not used to smelling their body odor and they're not used to smelling my body odor, so we're more sensitive to it. And I was speaking to my friend who's from India the other day and we were laughing about this because he was saying like, white people smell, and I was like, really? I was like, no, like, and this is not every white person, not every Indian. I was like, but some Indians smell. Like if you know, if I meet an Indian guy and they've been working all day, I can smell it. And he was like, well, it's the same when we smell you guys, as in like people from England. I'm like, oh, okay, because we're more sensitive to it because we haven't experienced it as much. So coming back around to my embarrassing story of the gym clothes, my roommate was from the Philippines, so of course she was very sensitive to my body odor and I was sensitive to her body odor. So the point is, be aware of your personal hygiene and don't make the same embarrassing mistakes that I did. And just be aware that, like, although you might not think you smell, you might smell. What was that? Basically, shower twice a day. Even if you think you don't need it, you need it. But especially if you're sharing a cabin. And don't hang dirty laundry around the cabin. The second thing I wish I knew before I shared a cabin is how important open communication is. I have spoken about this before, so I will link that video down below about my roommate experiences, but basically I learned how important open communication was with one of them. She did a lot of things that I didn't like, and I did a lot of things that she didn't like. But we never spoke about it. Because we were both, I don't want to say embarrassed, but I guess, yeah, too embarrassed to bring it up, or like we didn't want to rock the boat, because we actually got on really well, apart from these little things that we didn't like. But then what happened is resentment builds up. And in the end, we couldn't stand each other because of these things that neither one of us had spoke about. So in the end, when we did finally speak about it, we were like, I wish you'd have just told me that, because then I would have stopped doing it. Because just like I said about hanging my clothes up on the coat peg, if she hadn't have brought it up to me, I would have continued to do it because I didn't realise it was an issue. So it is so important that you, like, if there is something that your roommate is doing that you don't like, you have to tell them. And obviously, you know, don't be an asshole about it. Say something to them the way you would want them to say something to you. But yeah, make them aware of it, because 9 times out of 10, they're doing whatever they're doing, not even realising that it's irritating you. And the thing is, if you bring it up to them, I'm sure that they will stop doing it. But if you bring it up to them and they continue to do it, then you can be like, okay, this person is a bit of a dick and I want to move cabins. And then, you know, when you go to your manager and say you want to move cabins, because you have to have a good reason why you want to move cabins, because it's a big headache, basically. But when you go to your manager and say, well, they do this, this and this, I've asked them to stop doing it multiple times and they continue to do it. You can't go to your manager and say, I want to move because they do this. Because your manager's going to say, well, have you told them it annoys you? And you go, no. You'll be like, well, tell them then. So, really, really important for your stress levels and just for everyone's overall happiness that you are communicating effectively with the person that you are living with. It's a very small space that you have to share with them. So, you really need to be on the same page. Number 3, and speaking of being on the same page, really, cruise lines should put people in the same bunk who share the same religion. Because I had a friend who had a roommate, and at 3 AM every morning the alarm would go off, they would pray. Now that's fine. However, if you are sharing a cabin with someone who either is not religious or not of the same religion, I don't want to be woken up at 3 AM if I've got to get up at 7 AM to do a full day of work. And this was every single night. So, as you can imagine, this didn't go down well, and they did have to swap cabins in the end, but like, it just shouldn't have happened. They shouldn't have been put in the same cabin. And also, like, I shared a cabin once with someone who was really religious, and they had, you know, all their religious posters up and ideologies up on the wall, and they'd made like a little temple in the cabin, or shrine in the cabin, and I didn't have a problem with it, but this particular person wouldn't let me have pictures of, like, around the cabin. And it was only when a friend of mine was like, hang on, so she's allowed to have all of that religious ideology stuff around the cabin, but you can't have a picture of your mum on the wall. But the point is, religion can cause problems, especially if you are both religious. However, they're different religions. It's just something to bear in mind, which goes back to open communication and, you know, just being honest. Because the thing is, religion can be quite a tricky subject to bring up. You know, it's not, if someone smells, they'll be like, look mate, have a shower, get in the shower, you stink. Don't say it like that. But when it's religion, it is a tricky subject. So I am of the belief that if you have a cabin mate, you resolve problems between the two of you. Like, you only get your manager involved if you have told them about something that annoys you multiple times and they still do it. Then get your manager involved. But every issue you should resolve between yourself. But I do feel that religion, if it is causing issues, then that is the one thing I would say take to your manager, because it can be a tricky subject to broach, especially if they are extremely religious. So you just have to weigh the situation up. Hopefully it doesn't cause any problems between you and your cabin mate, but if it does, you know, there are people that you can talk to. And the thing is, there's probably going to be other people on that ship that share the same religion. Like, for instance, my friend who shared the cabin with the guy who woke up at 3 a.m. to pray. Like, there were so many people of the same religion. So he was like, just put him with someone else who also gets up at 3 a.m. to pray. And they did, and it worked great. But yeah, so religion. I wish I'd have known how big of a factor that can be when you live in a cabin with someone. So you are probably going to be doing a 6-month to 9-month contract, and in that time you're going to have sex, or you're going to get into a relationship or whatever. But you will not be sharing a cabin with the person that you are sleeping with. You will be sharing a cabin with, well, maybe if you're gay, but 9 times out of 10 you'll be sharing with someone of the same sex. And if you're heterosexual, or even if you are gay, you're probably not going to be sleeping with your cabin mate. Which means that you, again, going back to open communication, you have to give each other space to do that. But you also have to be considerate of the fact that you are sharing a cabin, and it is as much their cabin as it is yours. So some people do like alternate nights. So like if Pam is sharing a cabin with Sally, but Pam is sleeping with Greg, one night they'll stay in Pam's cabin and the next night they'll stay in Greg's cabin, if Sally is happy for Greg to stay in the cabin. And that means that basically Sally gets a break. And also, if Sally's sleeping with someone, she can have her person over. So that works quite well if you're lucky enough to have a cabin mate who is happy for your significant other to stay over. However, you might have a cabin mate who just absolutely no one else in the cabin. This can be really, really annoying. However, it's their cabin, and the way you have to think of it is like using the names again. Sally does have to trust Greg a little bit, because Greg is coming into Sally's space where all of her worldly belongings are. So yeah, like, you don't want someone there who you don't like. And even if you do like them, you don't want to hear them shagging. So again, what has happened, you know, if Sally doesn't want Greg to stay over, then Pam and Greg are just going to have to do the business in the daytime, on their lunch breaks, whenever. But it is so important that you ask your roommates permission to bring them over. Hopefully you are able to be open with your roommate and just say, look, we want to have sex. Do you mind leaving the cabin for an hour? Go to crew bar, go and sit on open deck, go out in port. Like, do you mind just giving us the room for an hour, 2 hours, whatever you need, so we can have sex? And again, if you're Sally, it can be really annoying if Pam has asked you to get out your room for 2 or 3 hours while her and Greg have sex. But you know what, Sally? You might meet someone and you'll want to take them back to your cabin. And because you've let Pam have her space, when you want to bring someone back to the cabin, hopefully Pam will give you your space and let you have the cabin for 2 or 3 hours. So it really is a case of I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine. But this is absolutely something that you are going to encounter. Like, most people are going to find someone to sleep with on cruise ships because you're just away for so long, and most people are sharing cabins. So, you know, you are going to get to know the person that your roommate is sleeping with. But please don't bring people back to the cabin and start having sex while your roommate is there if you haven't already okayed that with your roommate. Like, it's happened to so many people, and it's just really shit when you are trying to sleep and your roommate comes back and starts bunking someone. It's like, oh, I'll just get my headphones then. But then the beds, you know, they're bunk beds, so oh, it's all fun and games. But yeah, it's really important that you give each other the space that you need to do your thing. Number 5, cultural differences. So this is slightly different to religion and stuff like that. I'll tell you a little story. So I knew someone, I won't say where they're from. They were from a very rural area. So coming on a cruise ship was quite a culture shock for them. They were like, what are these Western ways? What is going on? And they believed that it was unhygienic to go to the toilet in an enclosed space because where they were from, they just went out in the open. They also believed it was hygienic to spit because they were like, it's better to be out of your body than in your body. So this person would go to the toilet with the door wide open, whether it was in a public bathroom or the cabin bathroom or any bathroom, the door was wide open. And they would spit on the floor in the cabin. Now obviously the roommate of this person, who was American, was absolutely horrified because like, oh, okay, so you're going to do a number 2 with the door wide open and then come out and spit on the carpet. Like, honestly, ridiculous. But the person who spat, he thought the American was unhygienic because he went to the toilet with the door closed and didn't spit. Now obviously they didn't live together for long because spitting on the floor caused quite a issue. But do you see what I mean? Like, cultural difference, you know, it's not like you're sharing a flat at home with someone else who's from the same country as you. 9 times out of 10 you are going to be sharing a cabin with someone who is from a completely different country, different first language, different religion, everything's different. Great learning experience. It will make you into a better person, but this is just one story of many where cultural differences can really leave you astounded. Like, oh, okay, this is what's happening. The 6th thing is trust. You and your cabin mate, whether you like each other or not, which hopefully you do have to have a certain level of trust because you're in a cabin, both of your belongings are in there. You have to trust that if you go and stay the night at your boyfriend's, your roommate isn't going to have a raging cabin party and invite 20 people round, and then you're going to go to your cabin the next day and it's trashed and half of your belongings have gone, you know, and you have to trust that they're not going to steal your shit. But again, I think trust comes from respect, and to gain someone's respect, it comes back to open communication, you know, and you have to try and get on, and there is going to be a lot of compromise. But if both of you can see that, like, you're both willing to compromise and you're both willing to, like, make this roommate relationship work, then hopefully that's going to lead to a certain level of trust, and which in the end gives you peace of mind. Because the last thing you want to do is leave work, leave the social areas and go back to your cabin and feel like you can't rest because you don't get on with your cabin mate, or you don't like them, or they frustrate you. You know, you want your relationship with your cabin mate to be as serene as possible because you need your cabin to be a place where you can be at peace. Schedules. So schedules is something that can either work in your favour or work against your favour. So 9 times out of 10 you will be sharing a cabin with someone who works in the same department as you, which on the one hand is good, on the other is bad. So I'm going to go through kind of both. So for example, on my first contract, I had a period where I shared a cabin with a girl from the casino. This was great because she worked all night and I worked all day. So all day she got the cabin to herself, and all night I got the cabin to myself. So it was kind of like having my own cabin, which was amazing. However, in the day she would be sleeping. So like on my lunch break, if I had to go into my cabin, I couldn't turn the light on. Like, I had to be really super quiet. And 9 times out of 10 on my lunch break, I just couldn't go to my cabin, and I just stayed like on the open deck or did something else, which was a little bit frustrating at times. And also it meant that if she came into the cabin during the night time when I was sleeping, but she was wide awake, like, she would have to be quiet. And there was a lot of times where we did wake each other up, and it just means disturbed sleep and you're a little bit cranky. But for me, I was like, you know what, we got on really well, so it was fine. I was like, if I get a bit of disturbed sleep, but it means that I basically have my own cabin, like, it's fine. Now, if you're on the same schedule, this is obviously good because hopefully your sleep isn't interrupted, but let's say you both have to start work at 10. You both have to shower before work. One of you has to get up earlier to shower first, one of you has to get up later, which is something that you will figure out between you. And in these cabins, there probably isn't going to be enough floor space for you both to get dressed at the same time. So, like, what on my other ship, what we would do, I would shower first, and then while she was in the shower, I would get dressed. She would come out the shower and she would get dressed because I would go in the bathroom to do my makeup. When I came out the bathroom, she would go in the bathroom to do her makeup, and I would, like, put my shoes on and get all my last little bit of stuff together, and I would leave and go for breakfast, and then she would come out the bathroom, get all her stuff together and come after me. And that worked really well. But the point is, you need to come up with some kind of, like, routine like that, because if every day you're like, oh, well, I want to shower first today, and then you're both trying to get dressed at the same time, like, it just isn't great. So I would try and come up with a system like that. You know, if someone wants to wake up a bit earlier, for example, I was fastest in the shower, so that's why I went first, because if I went after her, I would probably be at work late because she took ages. But if I've showered first, she can take ages without having to worry about me needing to shower. So it's just something that you need to figure out. But schedules, for that reason, can definitely be an issue. But again, you'll figure it out. But I just wish I knew. Before joining ships how to make it easier. Like the example I've just told you about me showering first, then coming out when she goes in. That took me like 2 contracts to figure out. Like, okay, this is how we make it work smoothly. Because before then it was like, oh, I'll shower. Oh no, you want to shower. Okay, I'll just wait. Oh my God, I'm going to be late for work. Oh no, I need to get dressed. Oh yeah. So just come up with a schedule if you're on the same work schedule. And again, open communication. Just bloody talk about it, have a conversation about it, and your problems will be so much smaller. It is the little things. So I think, you know, everything I've just mentioned, like cultural differences, religion, like all of that, it's honestly quite rare that that is going to be an issue. Like 9 times out of 10, you will share with someone and you'll be fine. You'll get along great. There isn't going to be these huge cultural challenges or religious challenges. It'll be fine. Usually, it's the little things that piss you off. Like hanging my gym clothes on the hook. Or someone comes out the bathroom and they throw their towel on the floor. And I remember I had one roommate, Natalie. She is one of my best friends to this day. But we lived together for a time. So we had a double wardrobe and we each had half of the wardrobe. And she had this hook that she would hang on the outside of the wardrobe, and she would come in from work and she would hang her clothes on this hook. But it wasn't just like one t-shirt. She would continuously hang things on this hook. So it was like this giant pile of clothes that like stuck out into the middle of the room. So I'd be like, can you please just like hang your stuff up? And we were really good friends, so I would just hang her stuff up and put it in the wardrobe. And she was like, why have you done that? I was like, because I don't like the hook. Just hang it up and put it inside the wardrobe. You've got enough hangers. Or put the hook inside the wardrobe. I just don't want to see it because it just comes out into the middle of the room and there's not much space as it is. And oh my God, we had so many arguments about this hook. But really, it was such a trivial thing. But it is the little things that are going to piss you off. Just like schedules, the showering in the morning, that is going to piss you off if you are constantly like, oh, shall I go first? Oh, shall I go first? Or like if they eat in the cabin, but they eat like food that smells. They might not think it's an issue, but you might. But again, you have to talk about it, because if you don't talk about it, resentment is going to build up and you're just going to end up hating them. So if they do something 3 times and you're like, I really don't like that, then you need to tell them. If you don't tell them, they probably don't know it's an issue. Being considerate. But the thing that I wish I knew was about the line. Like, yes, you have to be considerate, but you also have to stand your ground with things. So again, on the video I'll link below, I had a roommate who was like, you can't spray perfume, you can't have anybody in the cabin, you can't hang pictures of your parents up, like any pictures up on the walls. You can't dry your hair with a hairdryer because it set off her asthma or something. You can't, oh, your curfew is 12 p.m. because it otherwise you'll disturb my sleep. And that was like on my first contract, so I was like, I want to party till 3 a.m. every night. Not now, I'm in bed by 10. There was all these rules, and I was so like, I wanted to be so considerate, and I was like, yes, I want to make you as comfortable as possible. But then I lost myself, and I was like, this is bullshit that I can't dry my hair and spray a bit of perfume once in a while. And in the end, I built up loads of resentment and just ended up hating her guts. My bad. I should have communicated it to her. See, all of these things I'm telling you to do are things that I didn't do and I wish I had done. So yeah, be considerate of your roommate, but also realise when they're taking the piss. Because yes, it's their room, but it's also your room too. Just try and be aware of that, because I wasn't. I was just like, yeah, it's fine. And then one day I was like, boom, I hate you. So maybe don't do that. And then the 10th thing that I wish I knew was like all of the unspoken rules. On the top bunk, there's not enough room for you to sit up, which means that if you have the bottom bunk, the unspoken rule is that your roommate can sit on your bed. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to get in your bed, but like the bottom bunk is basically like a sofa. So if your roommate's just coming in on their lunch break and they just want to scroll on their phone, they don't want to get into bed, they're going to sit on the bottom bunk. So if you have someone who like doesn't like people sitting on their bed, then they need to have the top bunk. The bottom bunk is the sofa. Okay? Yeah, it's a bit weird if they get under the covers, but I'm not saying they're going to do that. They're just going to sit on it. The unspoken rule of ask if you're going to bring someone over, whether it's a boyfriend, whether it's a friend. You just say like, hey, I'm bringing this person over. We're just going to have a cup of tea in the cabin or a beer in the cabin. Do you mind? The unspoken rule of like, I'll take the trash one week, you take the trash the next week. Or I'll clean the cabin this week, you clean the cabin next week. Because I say I wish I knew this, like it's on the one hand it is just things that you figure out with your roommate because everyone has a different way of doing it, but also like I had never shared a cabin before, so you just don't know these things. It does take a while for you to figure it out when you first join ships, so I just wish I'd have known it a lot sooner than I did. But anyway, those are the 10 things that I wish I knew before sharing a cabin on a cruise ship. Oh my god. But yeah, I hope you have enjoyed that video. If you have, then please like and subscribe. If you have got any like roommate horror stories or any advice that you would give to someone who is going to be sharing a cabin on their cruise ship, then please leave it down in the comments, because we all want the advice. We all want to know what you think is good to do. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. This is a long one, but I've really enjoyed filming this one and I hope you have enjoyed watching it. And don't forget, I do have that video that I linked down below, which goes into a little bit more detail about my roommate experiences. But yeah, as always guys, love you loads, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.